Welcome to another episode of How to Cook Like Chef Bob. I'm Chef Bob. I'm here at the Uptown Artisan Center where P&HCC has cooking classes. Come on by and take a class. We're always here. We got tons of topics. Today, in just a couple minutes, we're going to make fresh bread. Fresh bread, you'd say, Chef Bob, how can you do that? Baking fresh bread, much easier than you think. You don't have to, some things you have to measure exactly, some things you don't. You kind of make the bread as you like it, so you can vary what you put in it. Very interesting. Basically, we're going to start, we have our basic mixer like you might have at home. We're going to start with a couple cups of flour. This is really the secret. This is the fast rise yeast. This will save you a lot of time, as most yeast require 2 rises. This only requires 1. So we're going to put the packet of yeast in there. Of course, we're making a sweet yeast roll, so a little bit of sugar goes right in there, and a little bit of salt. Let me grab the salt real quick. A little bit of salt goes in there. And then a tiny bit of just white shortening. Again, we're really not even measuring these ingredients. We have measured 2 cups of flour for 1 packet of yeast, but the other ingredients can be kind of how you like it. We also add 1 cup of water. And what a lot of people like to do with their water, again, depends on the final texture of your bread, is you can put some powdered milk in the water. So you could actually use water, milk, or a combination of the 2. And again, once you experiment with that, we're going to put some powdered milk in the water. And powdered milk is very good for baking. It's an excellent product. You can't tell it from this. We're just going to mix the powdered milk in the water. So we have 1 cup of milk or water, or any combination thereof. Now, this is the only important thing in making this bread. This water has to be 120 degrees, and the reason that is that it will activate the yeast. Yeast is a living microorganism, so as it hits with moisture and heat, it will produce carbon dioxide, which causes your bread to rise. We want to make sure this is 120 degrees. I have a thermometer here. If you don't have a thermometer at home, 120 would be probably the hottest you can possibly get your tap water. I would recommend even a few seconds in the microwave. Do remember this, though. Yeast is killed anything over 140 degrees, so don't get your water too hot. Don't use boiling water. You pour that right on top of the yeast and the sugar, and now we're gonna go ahead and start the mixer. In my mixer, I have a bread hook. If you don't have a bread hook attachment, you probably could get away with using a paddle. Most mixers will come with a bread hook attachment. Now it's mixing. The mixer is going to be very wet to start. That's normal. Once you've done, again, this is just dry ingredients and water. Once you've got that beginning to mix, you can begin to add some moister ingredients. You can put a little honey in. I always like. Put a little squeeze of honey in your bread. Another nice touch, I like an egg. We'll get a bowl to crack this egg. Make sure we don't get any shells. No shells. At this point, we can add that in there. Now, the bread's mixing. It's a very wet mixture. Plain and simply, all the ingredients are in now. What we're going to do is we're going to add flour in little by little until the flour begins to crawl up the bread hook. And again, this is a very quick process. The whole process of mixing the bread is no more than just a couple of minutes. With these new fast-rising yeasts, you can have a loaf of bread from the time you start until it comes out of the oven in, believe it or not, just a little over an hour. So, and that's because of these new fast-rising yeasts. I recommend that. Now I'm going to feed very slowly the flour in until it mixes, until the moisture begins to firm up. I'm going to put a little flour here on the bread as we're going to knead the bread a little bit by hand. Once it begins to crawl up the bread hook, it's already beginning to crawl up the bread hook. You can see how it's firming up. So we're actually quite close already. We've only been mixing for a couple minutes. You can also experiment. You can use some whole wheat flour. You can put a little molasses in there. Some people like to throw carrots in there. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can throw raisins in there, make a raisin bread. So once you learn the initial basics for your bread, you can add all kinds of other ingredients in there. Making bread, I don't think anyone enjoys the smell of fresh baked bread when you have company over, even just for your family. It's very easy to make, so just a matter of getting out there and doing it. So again, our dough is beginning to crawl up the bread hook. So we're going to just about get ready to pop it out, and we're going to knead it by hand a little bit. There we go. All right, we're going to stop the mixer. We're going to take this out. I have a rubber spatula. The dough will be very sticky when you take it out. You basically roll it in a small pool of flour, and you will continue kneading it until it doesn't stick to your fingers anymore. I try to get the rubber spatula to kind of get it all out in one plop. There it is. Now again, it's going to be a little sticky at first, so it's going to stick to my hands. It's warm and sticky. And see, there it is, it's sticking, but it's not sticking that badly. So again, just a little bit of flour, and now you can play with it. Bread's very tough. I don't want to splash the camera, but again, you can hit the bread. This is what makes bread. It's nice and stretchy, so it's actually, this is quite fun. This is a good, at this point, if you have kids, bring on the kids. Let them smash the bread around. You can be rough with the bread. So I think what makes bread making, so already this loaf has shape. It's almost ready to shape. So very, very quickly, it needed very little kneading. What I like to do is, to get the loaf smooth on top, is I like to fold the dough underneath it. So with a motion like this, I'm going to fold the dough underneath it so it's nice and smooth on top. Take some flour and pat it on top. That makes it nice and smooth. Believe it or not, this bread is already ready to cut. You see, it's stuck to my hands very little. I'm going to take and cut it basically into 3 semi-equal portions. They don't have to be exact. I'm going to take my tray that it's going to proof on, put a little pan spray on it, move that right in here. And each of these individual little breads I'm going to shape into a little mini loaf. And you can make rolls or little mini loaves, round loaves. Just going to shape these. And again, you can be a little rough with the bread, just trying to keep that top nice and smooth. A lot of people like to take a sharp knife and make a few cuts on top. Set that right over there where it's going to prove. This bread, with this fast rising yeast, you don't have to go through the first step of rising the bread. You can skip that step and go right into the shaping, right from mixing to shaping, and it'll rise in just one rise. When it doubles in size on this tray, you will put it in the oven and bake it for somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes. One way to check your bread to see when it's done in the oven is to lift up and look at the bottom. So the top will be nice and brown, but also make sure that the bottom is also nice and golden brown. And again, just some very light cuts with the knife and set that. And there's 3 loaves that are ready to set somewhere warm to proof. Again, once they about double in size, throw them in the oven. And I have some bread here that the students here at P&HCC made a couple days ago. Here's what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. All nice and golden brown. This is homemade bread we just made a couple days ago. Look at that gorgeous, gorgeous bread. Get some nice fresh butter. And the smell, your kitchen's going to smell wonderful. That's how quick and easy it is to cook bread. This has been another episode of How to Cook Like Chef Bob. Thanks very much. We'll see you again soon.